War is when the young and stupid are tricked by the old and bitter into killing each other, by Nico Bellic, GTA 4. This is easily one of my favorite quotes of all time, and it has very much a lot of relevance into the film Grave of the Fireflies. I've finally watched this movie, and I'll get into a lot of other details or surrounding information about it by the end of the video, because I watched it twice. I watched it once at home and once in the movie theaters when it came out for Studio Ghibli Fest, which I didn't know was actually a thing. Also, another fun fact, the third Studio Ghibli film I've ever seen ever.
You what?
Even though Spirited Away is one of my favorite films of all time, and it has been for a good number of years before Spider-Verse came out, but that's besides the point. Like, comment, subscribe, it helps. This film is a true depression fest of showing you how war truly is from a different perspective that we don't get to see a lot, especially if we compare it to all the other films that necessarily put you in the perspective of a soldier and not really the perspective of not only civilians but children, mainly in all the ramifications that the children and civilians have to suffer because of the consequences of war. From starvation to boredom to family to just survival in general, it's a complete and utter disgusting process that they undergo to the end of the film. Let me try not to get ahead of myself. Let me at least get into the story first. So the story first starts out with Sayata. He gives you the super spoiler of he's dead. He died on September 21st, 1945. Where at this point in time, obviously Japan's going through a very iconic war that I don't think I have to tell you what it is. But with the film going back in time to tell us how we got to this point, with the character being Sayata as well as his sister Setsuko, and then there's also his mother. And as they're in the household, they hear a whole bunch of sirens start ringing, and then that's when they realize they're all getting bombed in their town. And that's where I'll stop with the story. This is 100% one of the most incredible and most tragic tales of war I've ever seen. I feel like this is what most tragedies in human history should be shown as. Very blunt and honest and saying what is going on and what is happening, without leaving gaps in history or leaving out important crucial details or leaving out actions that people were doing to each other at this point of time in history. Seeing the panic, the sorrow, the horrible decision making that people had to go through to make sure you understand how bad the situation is and how we don't want it to happen again in human history. Or at least try not to, but that's another story. I'll start off by talking about both characters, Sayata as well as Setsuko, because I feel like they're just a combo package and they're like the main antithesis to the whole story itself. I feel like it's hard to separate them. If you talk about one, then you have to talk about the other. They're like glue throughout the whole story. These two characters are characters that you just want to crawl through the TV screen and take them out of this environment and cover them with hugs and food and kisses and a warm home, because holy shit, is just, as I said before, a depression fest. With their homes burning down, Sayata tries to play the big brother role the most he humanly can. He tries to keep a strong face and a strong-willed heart the whole way through just for his sister. He wants his sister to have a childhood. He wants his sister to stay in a child's lane instead of her growing up instantly because of this war. He wants to take her to the beach. He wants to give her candy when he can. He wants to give her food whenever he possibly can. He wants to just have her be sheltered in a way, but it becomes impossible. It becomes impossible because it's a war brewing in this country that is undeniably tangible and undeniably visible to everyone that is there. Even with his many distractions, one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie and one of the most saddest scenes in the entire movie is with both of them, with Sayata finding out that Setsuko actually knows that their mother had passed away later on in the movie, because she's bearing FireFlys and she's like, well, it's just gonna be like kind of like mom because she passed away. It was Sayata having that realization. He slowly but surely starts to break down and starts to cry in front of his sister. The first time he's ever really shown that much emotion, because he himself is a child. He himself is trying to shelter his sister, but he himself needs someone to shelter him, someone to give him a kind of a happy home, or someone to help or shelter him from this horrible situation that they're put in. And on the flip side, I look at this scene another way as well. I look at it as Sayata kind of felt Setsuko, or at least that's how he feels in his heart, because he starts to cry and break down, not only because of everything that's happening to him, but he sees that Setsuko doesn't really have a emotional reaction to his mother dying. She's quite scarily understanding of their mother dying in the time that's passed, and I feel like that bothers him because he's worked so hard up until this point to protect his sister, just for his sister to just be like this in the end. Then for Sayata, he keeps getting reinforced by multiple different characters throughout the movie, whether they be main characters that come in and out or characters that just aren't really there and will be there for a second. They keep telling him to be strong, you're the son of a Navy soldier, and even Sayata gets wrapped into this idea of being a strong Navy soldier or keeping the ideas of one and trying to become one because his father is one. It's sadly to see seeing this idea of the strong and masculine man in person that they all think of and know and love get ripped to shreds heads when it comes to the idea of war and once you get put into that situation itself. Then there's also another character that gets a very micro amount of understanding, but to put it bluntly as I humanly can, fuck this bitch, and it's the on for Sayata and Setsuko.
That shit is crazy. I really don't like that guy.
My goodness gracious, does this character become extremely annoying for the actions that they commit and they do to these children. Now, they go to the aunt's house because they have nowhere else left to go. So they go there, they have their mother's things as well as whatever else they can carry. Now, when it comes to the character of their aunt, at first she's like a likable character of attempting, or looks like she's attempting to help out the children by selling the mother's clothing so not only they can have food, but the other people in the household can have food as well, like the father as well as the cousin. And from my point of view, what it seems like with the aunt, as soon as the usefulness kind of ran out, that's when she's like, man, I really don't want these kids around. I want to kind of get them out as soon or quickly as possible, because she not only takes the clothing and she sells it and she actually does get the food for everyone in the household, but she's not giving the kids a lot more of the portion, even though they literally got the food for the entirety of the household. Or even when Setsuko went out to go scavenge for food, he found a whole bunch in his like little savings pocket and he gave it to the whole household, she still didn't like give them the amount of food that they needed. Doing the classic old person syndrome of when they're in the wrong and they get mad, they start to blame you and they will also say fuck you, go do it yourself, and the kids actually go ahead and get cooking utensils to actually cook for themselves. Mind you, they are like 14 in the age of like 8, and treat them as what some people can relate to if you have reached the age of 18 years old. Once you reach the age of 18 years old, if you were not doing anything in the household, they would treat you like a fucking bum until you actually do something like get a job in the household. And that's what happens to the kids at that age. And she would make little slick comments like, oh, you should be out there doing stuff for the war, oh, your cousin's doing things for the war, why aren't you Setsuko, who was like a little child, or why aren't you Sayata, who was also again a kid. But I do understand in this time period they would have to sometimes force children to do certain actions and things, but my goodness gracious, you are really forcing their hand here. Feeling like she was pushing them away as soon as the usefulness ended, and I felt like it was completely confirmed in my opinion when you see them about to leave and they're about to go to their own shelter. She goes out there and looks at them, she goes all the way back inside the house, comes right back out and looks at them again with a little bit of a frown, like damn, that's really fucked up what I did. Again, me having that understanding of you're in a war situation and you might not have enough rations for all of these children, but my god, you're a fucking asshole for what you did. I ain't gonna lie, I wouldn't have never done that. If worst comes to worst, I would just, you know, starve or do whatever I can to keep these children afloat, but that's just me. One of the major last things I wanted to go over when it came to Grave of the FireFlys is the idea of moving on or moving forward in a positive and negative fashion. Now, this comes in from the whole movie, from the beginning of us seeing the character himself die, and then at the end of the movie of having both of these characters reunited and they're looking at a more futuristic version of Tokyo. Now, the reason why I see this in a more positive and negative fashion is because in a more positive sense, they moved on and they were able to actually see Tokyo as it is in the modern day, to see it be a city that is still moving forward and still prospering and is still okay in the future. But negatively, because they were left behind. These kids were left behind in the idea of moving forward. Everyone's moving forward around them, but they were affected so harshly by the war itself that they all died. There was no one for them there, and everyone that saw them there as remnants of the past wanted them out of there. They were looked at as trash, as hobos, as bums, as people that should be annihilated, and it was disgusting. Just how veterans are looked at even to this day. But to hard cut, let me go to a more positive note. Let me at least tell you the story of my experience of watching it for the first time in the movie theaters because of Studio Ghibli Fest. I was able to watch it at a Regal, and my goodness gracious, I was having a good or a sad time watching the film. But then there were people next to me that were kind of freaking out because there was like a lot of shaking from the outside of the movie theater itself. Now they thought it was an earthquake, right? But obviously it's like the action movie that might be on the left or the right hand side, or the 4DX, whatever the fuck that could be around me. But they were like getting my anxiety up, and they're like, yo, is it? yo, your anxiety's coming up. Is it actually a fucking earthquake? Like, no, motherfucker, no, it's not. No, the fuck it's not. But it took me out the goddamn movie. And it was at the most pivotal part of the movie too, when you see Setsuko die. I was like, oh my goodness gracious. Fully took me out of the movie, but that's why I had to rewatch it when I got home before I made this video, because I wanted to make sure I got everything from my at least second viewing of watching the film itself. So on that note, I definitely suggest Graveyard Fireflies. Go give it a watch. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!